Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this today, mostly because we're looking at something you probably have sitting in your kitchen right this very second. We're going to explore the fascinating 250-year evolution of chocolate in America, focusing heavily on the incredible journey of baker's chocolate. It's this wild story of colonial ambition, mysterious disappearances, massive cultural shifts, and honestly, some brilliant marketing.
So let's just jump right in with a question to set the stage. How on earth did an expensive, imported colonial drink transform into, say, the chocolate chip cookies sitting in your pantry right now? It's really easy to take modern sweets for granted, but as our source material reveals, the journey of this single ingredient mirrors the technological and cultural evolution of the entire country.
The contrast between the past and the present is pretty staggering. It's like night and day. If we travel all the way back to 1765, which, remember, is before the United States was even an independent nation, chocolate was nothing like the candy we know today. It was an expensive, incredibly bitter imported product associated with extreme wealth, complex global trade, and exotic ingredients. You consumed it much like coffee or tea. Today, of course, it's a sweet, mass-produced staple. The huge gap between those two realities is exactly what we're unpacking today.
An exotic colonial luxury. Our story really kicks off in an 18th century world where cacao beans had to travel thousands of dangerous ocean miles through complex international trade networks just to reach North America. Because of this massive logistical hurdle, chocolate was strictly an exotic colonial luxury. There were no candy aisles, no wrappers, and definitely no chocolate bars.
And get this, the consumption process back then? Absolutely mind-blowing and so labor-intensive. You couldn't just snap off a square and eat it. No way. First, you had to buy a heavy, hard chocolate cake that honestly felt more like a brick. Then, you had to physically scrape that brick down into a powder by hand. And finally, you'd boil those scrapings in water to concoct a rich beverage. It was serious work just to get a single cup.
The first American chocolate mill. Now, everything shifted when two very different guys crossed paths in Massachusetts. On one side, you had Dr. James Baker, a Harvard-educated physician looking to make a name for himself. And on the other, you had John Hannon, an Irish immigrant who was entirely penniless but possessed this incredibly rare skill in America at the time. He actually knew the European craft of making chocolate.
Teaming up in 1765, they established a chocolate mill near Boston, in Dorchester, Massachusetts, effectively ushering in the era of early American manufacturing. They cleverly utilized a converted sawmill right on the banks of the mighty Neponset River, harnessing the raw power of the water to grind imported cocoa beans between massive, heavy millstones. They created those hard chocolate bricks we just talked about and sold them with a guarantee that if the chocolate wasn't good, your money would be completely refunded.
But, history is rarely a smooth ride. Right in the middle of the American Revolution, British warships blockaded the eastern seaboard, which made cocoa beans incredibly expensive and super hard to find. So in 1779, John Hannon set sail for the West Indies, planning to smuggle cocoa beans back into the colonies. And he vanished. Literally just disappeared. It remains a true historical mystery. No one knows if he died at sea or just chose not to come back. After some legal wrangling with Hannon's widow, Dr. Baker took full control of the operation by 1780, giving birth to what we now know as the Baker Chocolate Company.
From beverage to baking staple. As the Industrial Revolution rolled in with steam power and railroads, chocolate started to move beyond being just a special occasion drink for the elite. People started realizing, hey, this could be an everyday ingredient in cakes, puddings, and desserts.
So the crucial turning point here is how companies innovated to meet this new household demand. Now, have you ever eaten German chocolate cake and just assumed it came from Germany? I totally have. But actually, scratch that. It is 100% an American invention. In 1852, an employee at Baker's Chocolate named Samuel German formulated a brand new kind of sweet chocolate with a higher sugar content, specifically designed to make home baking easier. The company named it German Sweet Chocolate, right in his honor.
The power of recipe marketing. Moving into the 20th century, Baker's Chocolate had this huge realization. They were no longer just selling raw ingredients, they were selling possibilities to the American home baker.
The company successfully bridged the gap from a historic commodity to an absolutely essential part of the modern household baking experience. They adopted their famous La Belle Chocolatiere vintage branding back in 1883 and started weaving baking chocolate seamlessly into modern recipes. They were essentially showing ordinary people exactly how this product could transform their everyday kitchen into a bakery.
And wow, did that recipe marketing work in action? Just to put this in perspective, in 1957, a Dallas homemaker named Lucy Clay submitted a recipe for German's chocolate cake to a local newspaper. General Foods, who owned bakers at the time, noticed this and distributed her recipe to newspapers all across the country. The result? Sales of Baker's chocolate skyrocketed by a staggering 73%, a massive jump. The possessive S was eventually dropped by the public, giving us the German chocolate cake national staple we all know and love today.
Accidental inventions and crazes. But hey, it wasn't just slick corporate marketing driving this boom. Sometimes the most iconic staples of American culture were born entirely by accident.
Take the chocolate chip cookie, for example. In 1933, Ruth Wakefield, the owner of the Toll House Inn in Whitman, Massachusetts, was baking cookies. According to one really popular version of the story, she ran out of chocolate powder and just substituted broken pieces of semi-sweet chocolate, totally assuming they'd melt right into the batter. Well, they didn't. Boom! The chocolate chip cookie was born. During World War II, local soldiers received these cookies in care packages, shared them around, and sparked a literal nationwide craze. Ruth actually ended up trading her legendary recipe to Nestle in exchange for a lifetime supply of chocolate chips. Talk about a sweet deal.
A sweet legacy survives. To stick around for centuries, this brand had to navigate the wild ride of corporate America, moving from the Forbes syndicate in 1896 through Postum cereal and eventually landing right in the Kraft Heinz company portfolio.
When you look back, it's just a remarkable 250-year journey. From that very first water-powered mill on the Neponset River in 1765 to Samuel German's baking innovation in 1852, the adoption of their iconic branding in 1883, and of course, the accidental invention of the chocolate chip cookie in 1933. Through the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, World Wars, and right into the digital age, the machinery changed, the owners changed, and America changed, but the brand's connection to American baking remained totally unbroken.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today. We've seen exactly how a bitter, exotic luxury became a staple in all of our pantries. And it really makes you wonder, how many other colonial businesses survive simply by making themselves an indispensable part of your everyday life? The oldest businesses out there don't survive by staying frozen in the past. They survive by evolving right alongside us in our kitchens. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you found this 250-year journey as fascinating as I did.